Hello, everyone, and welcome to Filecoin Orbit community event for East and Southeast Europe in celebration of the first anniversary of Filecoin Mainnet launch that happened just over a year ago. I'm Nevenka from Started Serbia, and I'll be your host today. And before we get on with our program, I'd just like to say that we're so happy to be co-organizing this event with our partners from Protocol Labs, which is a team that's actually standing behind Filecoin and IPFS, and you'll get a chance to meet a lot of their team members during the 2 days of programs that are ahead of us. We'll explore how has Filecoin's ecosystem grown in this past year, what are some of the dev tools and opportunities that are available to people who are looking to enter this ecosystem, and we'll also reflect on some success stories that happened, especially in Europe, since that is our area of interest with this particular event. Before we go on to our first talk of the day, I'd like to welcome Colin from Protocol Labs, who taped a short segment and would like to also welcome you to this event.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Filecoin Orbit. My name is Colin, but as many of you know, my friends call me Protocolin, and I'm absolutely delighted to be with you here today at one of the many community events around the world. So if you're joining a community event, here is a warm welcome to Filecoin Orbit, a week of events celebrating everything that we've achieved together since Mainnet launched a year ago, and looking forward to what's next for the Filecoin community in the years to come. I'm so grateful to everyone here today and to everyone in the global Filecoin community who has made the last year of this journey possible. From storage providers to developers to clients to ecosystem collaborators and of course the broader community, you have all contributed to Filecoin's collective mission to create a decentralized, efficient, and robust foundation for humanity's information. If you haven't done so yet, please take a quick minute to register at orbit.filecoin.io or to take a look at the schedule of all the amazing community events throughout the week. And if you want to tweet, please use the hashtag FilecoinOrbit to share pictures or excerpts from today. So I figured I'd do the 2-minute version of looking back over the last 12 months and picking out a few highlights. So first and foremost, due to the incredibly hard work of the community, Filecoin has become the storage network of Web3 over the last year. It's also enabled Filecoin to become the data and content platform of Web3 and libp2p to become the networking library of Web3 as well. Now, when you focus on Filecoin, it's just incredible to see that we have had over 8,000 contributors to GitHub across the Filecoin repos over the last year or so. And Filecoin has become one of the top 5 most actively developed blockchain protocols in recent studies as well. In terms of storage providers, over 3,000 storage providers have added over 12 exabytes of storage, which is large enough to store 3 billion 1080p movies, 50,000 copies of Wikipedia, or really 1.2 million versions of all of Web3 data, which is remarkable. This is just a quick snapshot of all the logos of just some of the storage providers that are providing services to the ecosystem today. Now, in terms of Web3 collaborations, Filecoin has been actively integrating and bridging with other major Web3 projects in 2021. And most of these integrations have come with joint grant programs and hackathons to encourage a bunch of new developers to adopt these bridges and use Filecoin as the underlying storage layer of these other protocols. Of course, IPFS Filecoin has become the default tooling for NFTs. NFT.storage has become a pretty popular developer tooling platform, and many NFT platforms have adopted this as their underlying technology. IPFS has become natively integrated with a bunch of browsers, including Brave and Opera. I think this has enabled over 250 million monthly active users on those browsers itself. Lots of video and audio use cases across Filecoin and IPFS. VideoCoin and Filecoin have come together to power video NFTs. LivePeer and Filecoin have done a bunch of co-mining pilots to enable transcoding, storage, and retrieval of videos. And Audius has integrated IPFS to really distribute the next version of Web3 audio, which many music and artists are starting to adopt. Web 2 data sets are being stored on Filecoin using Starling Labs, which is establishing trust for humanities data. Internet Archive's another great example of this. They're backing up films and audiobooks onto Filecoin as well. And we've launched a whole bunch of easy developer tooling, including Web3.storage, Estuary, Textiles, Bitbot, and many, many others to make it easy for developers to adopt Filecoin. Now, it was an amazing year for developers. We had lots of hackathons, grants, accelerators, ecosystem investors to spur a bunch of activity in the ecosystem. This includes hackathons, where over 10,000 hackathons engaged with IPFS or Filecoin over the course of 2021, and we've absolutely ramped that up. Community events are now launching 5 hackathons a month that are engaging over 500 to 1,000 developers per hackathon. And so we see a bright future in 2022 for this as well. We've had lots of developer grants across the Filecoin Foundation and many other supporters. And over 60 teams have graduated from accelerators this year, raising seed funds and becoming real businesses built on IPFS, Filecoin, and libp2p. These are just a few of the accelerator partners: Filecoin Launchpad, partnered by Tachyon, Outlier Ventures, Techstars, and the Long Hash Ventures Filecoin Frontier Accelerator throughout the year. Finally, there's lots of capital for developers who want to build businesses on Filecoin. Over 65 billion of external capital has been raised specifically to invest in the IPFS and Filecoin ecosystems at the application layer. So exciting times for developers that are entering the ecosystem. All this has culminated to, I think, over 230 applications being built on IPFS and Filecoin today. And that's really growing exponentially. I'm so excited for that to hit new heights in 2022. I also just want to take a quick minute to preview the exciting moments of this week. So this week, we have over 200 community events throughout the week. And this is in multiple countries, I believe 10 countries, including the US, China, Italy, Nigeria, India, the Netherlands, Kenya, and many, many others throughout the world. This also includes a whole variety of topics, including developer tools, NFTs, how we can make Filecoin a green network, storage tools, policy, DeFi and FinTech, the metaverse, Web3 storage, Web2 storage, Filecoin retrieval market, and many, many more. And thank you to the incredible organizers of these events throughout the world, including the Filecoin Foundation, IPFS Force, Ken Labs, Phil Swan, Protoschool, DWeb, Matrix Storage, Secured Finance, and all the other ones that you see on the screen today. You're putting on incredible events with such a diverse array of topics. I'm excited to participate personally, and I know many of the other community members are as well. This is just a quick preview of some of the potential events around the world that might happen this week. And of course, to track all of those events and schedules, and if you also want to speak at any of these events, please register or visit orbit.filecoin.io and tweet with the hashtag FilecoinOrbit. Great. So just want to step back here and just say how grateful I am to the powerful group of developers, storage providers, clients, ecosystem partners, and community members who are bringing Filecoin's mission to reality. Whether you're engaging virtually or safely in person, please bring your ideas, your suggestions for how we can evolve the Filecoin network for the better going forward. Both myself and the entire community wants to hear from you. And so to the organizations, the individuals that are investing in the Filecoin ecosystem, thank you. This is absolutely just the beginning. Enjoy the sessions today, ping me anytime, and looking forward to all the major community events throughout the week. Take care.
Thank you so much, Colin, for this great overview of what we can expect during this week. And now to get on with our program for today. In our first talk, we'll explore how the Filecoin ecosystem has developed in its first year. And I will invite at this point our first speaker to join us. It's HQ Han from Protocol Labs, where she works as on ecosystem growth. So she's a perfect person to tell us about this. Hi, HQ, welcome.
Hi, yeah, very pleased to meet everybody. I will now share my screen. Give me a second.
Perfect, the screen is yours.
Okay. All good? Okay. So today we have about half an hour. I'm super excited that I'm currently going to do the first presentation of today in a 2-day series with all of you. So thanks for inviting me. And today I will talk a little bit about a year in the Filecoin ecosystem. So because you have seen in Colin's talk just before, he has already shared with you a lot of the highlights of the ecosystem. And so my session today is to really talk about slightly different things, like a little bit about how we approach the ecosystem. We want to share that with the community at large, how our approach has changed over the past year, and also double click and deep dive a little bit into our priorities that are current as well as which we take forward into the future. So a short introduction about myself. My name is HQ Han. I am a Singaporean, actually. I am doing two main things at Protocol Labs, Filecoin, basically ecosystem collaborations, and I also lead the Asia growth for Filecoin. So short agenda, I will start with a very small, tiny rewind, talk about IPFS and then Filecoin, recap and introduce Filecoin's mission and overview. I hope that all of you are familiar about Filecoin, but for any new joiners to our community today, as well as this week, I will just do a quick overview. After that, I will talk about how we think about the ecosystem, some priorities, selected highlights, and finally close off with a few messages to the community from the whole ecosystem team. If there is still time after the presentation, I will also take some Q&A. Otherwise, feel free to ping me on Twitter or on Filecoin Slack. All right. So if we take a tiny rewind, basically in 2015, we started off with IPFS. So IPFS makes the web work peer-to-peer. Since 2015, we've built an incredible ecosystem of IPFS users, and it has now become like the data and content platform of Web3. So basically, as I mentioned, there was a huge and growing ecosystem on IPFS. There are hundreds of applications, excellent dev tools, there are millions of websites, hosting websites and dApps on IPFS, and 200 million plus browsers enabled. In October 15, 2020, we then launched the Filecoin network. And so the Filecoin network basically was launched as an incentive layer over IPFS. And so basically, we got to build on the incredible ecosystem of IPFS that was already existing. When we look at storage, as it has evolved over the journey, we can see that Filecoin and IPFS is the next frontier of storage as it evolves. All right, so now it takes us to the launch of Filecoin, and I'd like to recap. The mission of Filecoin is to create a decentralized, efficient, and robust foundation for humanity's information. And the team and the community at large, we all really believe that information is the most important resource for humanity, and we're really devoted to this mission. As we can see, the global data sphere will 3x in the next 4 years. And what this shows is that simply there is not enough centralized cloud services to store all this data that is really crucial for humanity. And so it's really important for us to look at different ways, look at the next frontier of storage, as I mentioned. There are several problems that Filecoin addresses. So starting from taking power away from the top 3 centralized providers, it gives data control, optimizes storage in a way that centralized cloud servers cannot do, and importantly, an efficient storage market. So anybody can come onto the Filecoin network, can provide and contribute network capacity. So this is a huge paradigm shift in the way that storage is being conducted. Instead of a few big players dominating our digital future, we need an open market. Basically, cloud companies, individuals, me and you, We can dictate our prices, different kinds of services across geographies. It's an open protocol that anyone can plug in. You can think about it like a little bit like an Airbnb for cloud storage. So basically, you can plug in and you can serve out your own unique cloud storage services. And so if you look at this a little bit like on the storage and the demand side and the supply side, on the left-hand side, we already had a huge growing ecosystem built on IPFS, a lot of applications and use cases demanding storage. And then on the right-hand side, Filecoin in October 15, 2020 really brought a lot of the storage supply on network, incentivized storage for long-term storage. Yeah. Okay. And now let's move on. We'll share a little bit about how we think about ecosystem development at Filecoin. And the ask here is to, like you as a community to really jump on board, involve yourself in any part that you're interested in or think that there is a gap. The successful mainnet launch in October 2020 made growing the Filecoin ecosystem really critical. So before that, a lot of the work and stress related to that and the rush was devoted to a lot of the technical components of getting Filecoin on mainnet. After October 2020, it was absolutely crucial and extremely busy for us to engage a lot of the different stakeholder segments in the Filecoin ecosystem. So there is a lot of incredible progress that we have made, as Colin has shared. And so along the way, our approach to ecosystem development evolved, and I will say that it would continue to evolve. I'll share more in a second. As you understand, there are several stakeholder groups in our ecosystem. So they range from storage providers that can range in different kinds of sizes, small size, mid-size, mega miners, like some of them in China. There are some exchanges and token liquidity services, ecosystem capital. These refer to a lot of the investors that are investing in Filecoin and Filecoin ecosystem projects. A crucial one is the developer pool. These are the developers that we really hope to engage and activate to build new applications and use cases on Filecoin. Then there are things like ecosystem multipliers, such as very key strategic collaborators. I'll share more about those later, and accelerator programs that really help to jumpstart, nurture, and mentor some of these more mature projects. And finally, there are storage clients and dApps that are using and contributing to the storage demand on Filecoin. Of course, we are supported by several critical components. We have relations with media, local crypto media, social media, influential associations, conferences and meetups. Study is like one of them, but we do a regular stream of meetups every 2 weeks and participate in several leading crypto conferences around the world to share more about our passion for Filecoin and decentralized storage and laying the foundation for Web3. We also have an incredible team of local ambassadors that work with like different communities, and of course, legal and external counsel. So this is really to just give you a bit of the lay of the land in terms of like the different kinds of segments that comprise of the Filecoin ecosystem. And so it really is ecosystem building and not just business building. Here is a framework that we use to think about ecosystem growth. So on the top, the ecosystem multipliers. Basically, these cover new use cases, collaborations with other Web3 ecosystems, bridges to Web2 use cases. In the front and center part of it, we show a funnel that takes people from becoming a developer where they come into the Filecoin ecosystem either through a hackathon. They can receive education, resources, support. They can work on a tiny little project. Then they can receive a grant. If they want to become, like a business, a startup, they can go through our accelerator programs. We run 5 or 6 accelerator cohorts a year, and then mentorship. Yeah. And then after that, businesses where they can receive funding. Finally, there's a storage provider growth segment where there are tools and resources to help storage providers grow, prosper, and expand geographically. All right, a couple of priorities and selected highlights. I'll probably take just a few minutes on this section. So there are 4 priorities that I'll share today. The first, on the storage provider side, a huge priority of growing small and mid-sized storage providers, promoting further geographical diversification, and of course, doing it in a sustainable way. So this is the geographical spread of Filecoin storage network. As you can see, there are still bunches of areas where it's more concentrated. This is the basis for the geographical diversification. And then there are basically a whole slew of initiatives that we have launched, as you can see here. Priority number 2 is bringing large and useful data to the Filecoin network. So the Filecoin Plus program, do check it out. It's extremely good and has been gaining a lot of traction. And also, we just launched Filecoin Project Gravity, which is a sales referral program for bringing large data sets and useful data sets to Filecoin. Oops. Okay. And priority number 3, we are working on building and uniting the developer funnel all the way from hackathons, grants to accelerators. A lot of the next few slides I will just skip through because Colin has already covered them in the presentation earlier. But basically, there's an incredible amount of activity, developer activity on the Filecoin ecosystem in just a year. So it's extremely stunning growth. We are making sure that the transitions for developers it's a full suite of transition from hackathons to grants, accelerators, and ecosystem funding. So there is no drop off. There's always a support network for anyone that's interested to build a business on Filecoin. This is the vibrant ecosystem that we have. We have a goal to engage 100,000 developers to hackathons in the next year. We launched several hackathons. We are doing about 5 a month. That's a huge amount. There are some selected highlights that we want to share. So HackFS was a huge success. One of the cool things that we've launched in Asia is the Asia Hackathon season, which is a 4-event series that we worked with Alibaba, Flow, Polygon, and other ecosystem collaborators. There's also potential maybe to launch something in Europe next year. We can see. All right. Grant goals ramping up to 3,000 plus developer grants per year. There is a full suite of grant programs available depending on which stage that you are at. And of course, as Colin touched upon, we have 5 to 6 accelerator cohorts per year, and we really hope to ramp up to 500 plus teams graduating per year in the future. Finally, priority 4, we want to position Filecoin at the core Web3 value flow. So basically, right now, Filecoin is the de facto storage layer of Web3, regardless of which smart contract system you're developing on. You can use Filecoin and its associated dev tooling and gateways for storage. And over the last few months, we launched several notable collaborations, such as with Dapper Labs, Chainlink, Near, Polygon, and Hedera. In actually the ensuing Orbit events, you will get to hear several of our collaborators speak on different panels. So do dial in and check out the schedule on the Orbit website. We leave off with a few messages as I'm coming up to time right now. So this is really to the ecosystem and the community from all of us. number one, we love to take this moment to celebrate the successes we have achieved as a community in the past year. Today marks a critical moment. And so thank you very much from all of us. The quality of the community will ultimately dictate the success of the ecosystems. So we really hope that all of you can be ambassadors for Filecoin, be welcoming to new developers, storage providers, investors, etc., entering the ecosystem. Number two, if you are probably new and looking into our ecosystem, if you're thinking of a moment to jump in, there isn't a better time than now. Number three, we really encourage you to take ownership of the underlying protocols and their roadmaps. So IPFS, Filecoin, Lib P2P, these are yours to evolve. If you feel that there are gaps to be built, anything that's missing, please work with the community to take these forward. And finally, let's take a long-term view and leverage the community. We are absolutely just getting started. We are less than 1% in what the community can achieve. So we encourage everyone to level up, to learn, to engage, to activate more, leverage everyone in this room and beyond to be successful. And we are here to support you on this journey in the long term, the next 10, 20, 50 years. Yeah. Thank you very much. Feel free to ping me. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, HQ, for your talk and your overview of the first year of Filecoin ecosystem. We actually have a few questions that we received on some of the streams where we have viewers, and I think we have time for maybe a couple. So would it be correct to compare Filecoin to AWS in any way?
If you're just starting off, it is a fair comparison and it's easy to understand in that way. So AWS is a centralized cloud service, right? So basically there is storage, there's also compute. You can basically use AWS and you can, spin out your application. If you're an enterprise, you can use AWS and also get a full suite of services. So Filecoin, and the way to think about it is that it is a decentralized version of that. And it's something that we think can really set up humanity for the future. So it's a reconstruction of how can we put all these modular things in a composable manner and provide it peer-to-peer, such that it's more robust and it's not subject to a lot of the centralized problems that AWS has, including increasing dominance, including potential hacks, due to centralized points of failure, etc. So basically it is comparable, but I would say that it is better and it's building a foundation for new innovation in that way. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And our last question for today. So what were some of the biggest challenges of the ecosystem growth in this first year that you would highlight?
Yes. So as we talked about, I shared about the approach to which we built the ecosystem and the approach that we are having now. Actually, maybe I can talk about the biggest challenge actually was that we didn't really have enough people. And so I think we have grown the team by about probably 10x since we launched the mainnet. And so a lot of the the startup kind of problems that we have are basically getting the processes, the strategy, being really thoughtful about the things that we do, such that we focus on the high leverage ecosystem growth items. This was a huge challenge, but I think that we are now on a really good road. We are now, have streamlined a lot of the processes, as I shared, such as the developer funnel, etc. So I'm really excited for the future. Yeah.
Super. And since we do have a couple more minutes on hand, I want to just do a short follow-up question to this. So I noticed that you mentioned during your presentation that you want to engage at least 100,000 developers through hackathons and other programs that you plan on organizing next year. So would you say that developers are your most important stakeholders at this point of your ecosystem journey?
I would maybe reframe the question a little bit. So I think the way that we think about it is that it's an ecosystem, and when we use the word ecosystem, it's not just, you know, clients or storage providers or like a certain segment that we're trying to target. But all these segments that I mentioned before are really critical for the entire ecosystem to flourish. So if one is missing, then there is no, you know, there is a problem with this thing that we're trying to facilitate here. And so it's a bit hard for us to sort of say that a certain segment is more important. However, to contextualize it a little bit in, you know, the point that we are, I would say that the developer focus is extremely critical, and that's because we really want to bring Web3 forward. And in order to bring Web3 forward, we actually need, you know, like really extremely high level, consumer level applications that can bring Web3 mainstream. So if you think about like maybe decentralized video, decentralized social media, that kind of thing, all these things are things that we have not seen yet. So whereas like we have seen a lot of things like CryptoKitties really take the whole, you know, like blockchain world forward. So that is why developers are crucial and key, because the more we can broaden the funnel and put them through, you know, like refining their ideas, growing their ideas, the more likelihood Web3 as a whole can find product market fit. Yeah.
Perfect. Makes total sense. Super. So my colleagues tell me that we do have another question from the audience, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. Yeah.
You can probably see it on the screen. I don't need to read it out loud.
Okay, yeah. So the question is, how important are NFTs for Filecoin ecosystem growth? And the answer is a little bit more nuanced. So if I just talk about NFTs a little bit, our goal for NFTs is to become the default storage for all of NFTs in the blockchain world. And I think that we are well on the way to doing that. So as Colin mentioned, we have NFT.storage, which is a very simple tool that NFTs can use to store data. And I think we have been educating the community on the importance of you know, making these NFTs persist, right? So that is the value of decentralized storage to the NFT world. And so basically the way that we think about the NFTs is like, it was a very simple and a good start for us to show the value of decentralized storage to the blockchain world, the Web3 world at large. However, we cannot stop at that, because as you know that, you know, we have to approach it in a sort of like thinking big way. So NFTs are like maybe one bucket within the, you know, the whole universe of use cases for Filecoin. You know, could be like Web2 use cases, such as like bringing, you know, like important data sets, different kinds of data sets on the Filecoin. There's several like Web3 related use cases, such as video that, you know, we have touched on a little bit, gaming, for example, an extension of like NFTs, decentralized social media, etc. So there are a lot of other things that we can do, but then NFTs was a very easy way for us to showcase to the Web3 ecosystem at large the value of decentralized storage and the importance of content persistence.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Itku, and thank you for joining us. It was really a pleasure. And we'll see you again in our final session of the day.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. So our next speaker will help us get to know some of the European success stories in Filecoin IPFS ecosystem and get this regional perspective that is really important for this event, since we are focusing on our own community here in East and Southeast Europe. So I would like to welcome Blake from Outlier Ventures.
Hello,
hi,
Filecoin
Blake.
Orbit community. How's everyone doing?
Welcome. Good to see you and hear you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Super. I'm going to leave you the screen now and you can share your presentation. I'm looking forward to hearing about success stories from our part of the world.
My pleasure. So let me make sure everything works in order. Are my slides visible? I'm hoping that's a yes. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Blake Lezensky, and I have the pleasure and the honor to be responsible for the Filecoin Basecamp program here at Outlier Ventures. And I want to talk to you today about the European ecosystem and some of success stories that emerged or are emerging as we speak from our team up with Protocol Labs that are leveraging Filecoin technologies. But before we deep dive into it, I want to set a bit of context. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with this, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating some of the information, but I just want to show you the bigger story before I explain in detail how do we accelerate Filecoin projects in Basecamp and what's coming out of our accelerator that I think is very notable, Europe-based, and definitely worthy of attention as a success story. So initially, the developments in the European ecosystem were very, let's say, bottom-up rather than top-down. You've had amazing projects. You might have heard about one of them, Ethereum, coming out of Switzerland. You had Bitpanda emerging out of Austria. You had the IOTA protocol coming out of Germany, or Lisk with this not very intuitive logo coming out of Switzerland. And essentially, both governments and pan-governmental organizations started catching up to the trend. And some top-down pressure started being applied as Cyprus, Estonia, Malta, and Switzerland initially emerged as blockchain-friendly hubs, and they mostly still are till this day. Some initiatives were formed on the pan-European level, including the European Blockchain Partnership of 2018, that later introduced what we call the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure to essentially accelerate the adoption of technology through intergovernmental and interstate collaboration. So how did it look on the other side of the market from the investor side? Well, in 2017, Outlier Ventures invests since 2013, initially being an angel syndicate and then moving on to venture investing. But in 2017, Outlier Ventures was one of the first European investors with crypto focus, next to KR1 and Fabric Ventures. Speed Invest was also making first steps in the direction of crypto and blockchain. And ever then, we remained evergreen. What it means is that we understand that this is a cyclical market, and we support our founders and stick to them through thick and thin, through bear and bull. Actually, some of our best investments were made in the bear market, and they yield the biggest rewards for us. So we're not afraid of this, and we will support you no matter if it's all in green or all in red. Some other developments that came around that time, Lithuania, Netherlands, Slovenia, and UK became more mature and grew out their ecosystems, whereas France, Germany, and Luxembourg did a lot on the regulation front to help advance the overall legal setup for projects in Europe. We also had some new regulation coming out in relation to data, PSD2 directive and related open banking directive, which essentially enabled new business models, also powered by blockchain. So around that time, maybe a bit later, we actually finally figured out the perfect business model to support Web3 founders. We created a custom accelerator for Web3 projects called the Basecamp, in which we condensed 8 years of organizational learning at Outlier Ventures into a 3-month virtual, fully remote program for early-stage startups. We provide them with in-house expertise on token governance, design, distribution, fundraising, community building, marketing, hiring, technology stack selection, anything you can dream of as part of areas of challenge to your startup. And we have been investing in the open data economy for 7 years now, potentially longer than anybody else. And we have quite notable alumni in our portfolio coming out of Europe, such as Fetch AI, Tap My Data, Kudos, or Dia Data. I also believe 2017 was the year when Protocol Labs got their last funding round. And essentially this all culminated in a team up that we have with Protocol Labs in creating a dedicated Filecoin Basecamp program that is addressed to founders, teams, and startups that leverage any part of Protocol Labs technology, Filecoin, IPFS, libp2p in their tech stack. We're here to help. So currently the program is ongoing, and I would love to tell you a bit more about potential success stories that I see coming out of this program. Essentially, they're halfway through the program now, but I already see them shaping up to be the next banners of the European startup ecosystem, and they're all powered by Filecoin and IPFS and would never happen if not for amazing technology from Protocol Labs. One of those examples, very close to our previous topic, which was NFTs, is Zone. Zone allows you to create your own page in the metaverse. We jokingly call it the MySpace of Web3, but this page is essentially an augmented reality zone. It's a bit like a room or a space that you can populate with NFTs. You can flex your NFT art, you can show your NFT collectibles, but the room is an NFT itself. You can also invite people to your room, show it to your friends, or you can actually organize events in one of those zones. So I think this is a great project that is also leveraging the power of NFT storage by Protocol Labs, and essentially would never be possible without IPFS. And I look forward to many amazing things coming from the Zone team, and potentially I wouldn't mind having a zone of my own where I can showcase my NFT collection. So coming back from more NFT-related topics, Exort. Oh, yeah, and they are based out of London, but previously worked from Valencia in Spain. Exort is based out of Lyon in France, and it's a great team of super smart engineers with a lot of experience that actually also have the sales skill set. So this is not something that comes very often, and I'm super happy that team is working with us. Their mission is to help you understand information differently. The way they do it is they provide a system which is based on an API, as well as looking forward to rolling out a consumer app that allows you to verify information in an entirely new way. This is mostly based on two technological components, one of them being a virality predictor engine, and the second one is essentially reliability scoring metric, which tracks trends in information and how the information traveled from a source and went through different iterations on different sources, and how it ends up in which form and how reliable that is. The plan is essentially to offer those solutions both to the news segment, especially in the context of politics, where fake news is a big pain point, as well as to the financial sector, where this information can have enormous value to people like traders, investors, and other finance professionals. And again, this would have never happened if not for Filecoin and IPFS. So they're a huge fan of the technology. And they look forward to storing much more terabytes of data on it. Moving forward, and this is a very interesting case coming out of Berlin, very seasoned professionals, amazing knowledge, both in terms of AI development, as well as entrepreneurship, as well as very firmly plugged in the ecosystems such as Ocean, for example. Data Union created they power data collaborations for data-centric AI. What it really means is they're a community of data creators, annotators, and analysts, and essentially they try to reach the best quality of data sets by enabling the crowdsource of those data sets. And then additional part that they enable is building data unions as a service. So essentially, no matter the type of data that you have, they can help you set up a data union that will benefit the members of your community. They also have a play-to-earn element, which is also connected to NFT technology. They're using Filecoin and IPFS like crazy. And even though they haven't yet started fundraising, they already have 2 junior data unions that they developed. So this is quite an amazing traction and amazing pair of professionals delivering this project out of Berlin. And to give you a better look at how Filecoin and IPFS can power data unions, I want to use the last example from the cohort and a data union of itself, unbanks. I mentioned previously the PSD2 and Open Banking Directive. Essentially, this empowered unbanks to offer an opt-in way to monetize your private banking data based on the Open Banking Directive. It turns out this data is extremely valuable, especially to financial institutions, but not having the opt-in option is essentially a huge compliance risk. And in the words of a very seasoned finance professional that we interviewed, opt-in data sets are a compliance slam dunk. Unbanks is rewarding you for your data and allows you to monetize the value that maybe you didn't know you had or didn't have a way to monetize, or in a safe, user-centric, and compliant manner. So continuing from examples of success stories coming out from our team up with Protocol Labs, I also want to talk a bit more about how we help those companies excel. Firstly, we plug them into our ecosystem. Outlier Ventures specializes in fundraising. However, we are also a powerful network organization. We have operational connections to many exchanges, startup communities. We have a huge portfolio of startups, especially in the open data economy, that range from compute to multi-party compute, anything you can think of as part of the open data technology stack. And finally, we are linked to some of the biggest investors globally that look to us for signal to invest in metaverse projects. Some of the heavy hitters already expressed their interest in the Filecoin Basecamp program and projects coming out of it to help us make them the next big success story. So to finish it off, why should you care about the Filecoin Basecamp and why you should consider applying? We've helped over 70 alumni raise more than 170 million in seed capital, and that's only over the course of the last 18 months. The combined valuation of our Basecamp alumni portfolio is currently at $1 billion. At the peak of the bull market run, it was more like $3 billion. Seems like we have a bull market run right now, so I should actually verify that information. Perhaps it's more. And the number is so volatile because we are not afraid of tokens. We help you with everything token related, and we specialize in token fundraise. So it's a big part of our portfolio. And if you apply to the program and get selected, you get a $50,000 immediate upfront investment, as well as a chance for a follow-on funding of $250K. You get the custom support from our network of mentors, as well as in-house experts on all those areas that we discussed previously. And finally, you get support from an amazing network of mentors from Protocol Labs, and especially in the context of Filecoin, this is a great opportunity not to be missed. I've already actually had other big organizations reach out to me and ask if they can actually speak to Protocol Labs about integrating Filecoin in their big projects, because it's such an amazing technology that brings a lot of benefits to everyone in the industry. So in order to be considered for the Filecoin Basecamp program, I encourage you to reach out directly to me at BlakeBeyond on Twitter or at Blake Lezensky on LinkedIn. But you can also go to our website and use the office hours link on the Filecoin Basecamp website to book an office hour call with a member of our team to ask all the questions you might have and address any doubts and understand why the startup acceleration might be the best way to 10x your Filecoin/IPFS project, bring it to the next level, and make it the next grand European success story. So that reaches the conclusion of my deck. I'm going to stop sharing now. Hope that this was visible and good to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Blake, for this interesting presentation and giving us very specific examples of startups and projects you were supporting. We actually have one question from the audience, and it's a bit of a longer one. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to read it since they provided a bit of context. So Kate Clark, who is a VC journalist at The Information and previously at TechCrunch, tweeted yesterday, "The last time I was this focused on covering crypto startups was in 2017, and the conversations I had with Silicon Valley VCs then were wildly different. I'm not sure when it was, the last few months maybe, but there's been a massive shift. So the question is, how has traditional investors' approach to Web3 been changing in 2021 from your perspective and experience?
So I truly believe that in 2017, even though within the crypto ecosystem, people were very bullish and confident on everything that was going on, when it comes to traditional investors, I believe to them, cryptocurrencies were still a wild card. They understood it as simply an alternative financial system. I heard a lot of opinions where people said, well, cryptocurrencies emerged, they're here to stay, but that's it. There is nothing coming out of it. What I think we didn't really understand, I'm sure some people understood, but on the macro level, what we didn't really understand is that many innovation brought to us by cryptocurrencies and blockchain at large actually enabled entirely new economic paradigms that allows you to build totally different businesses and scale them up in a different fashion. I believe back then the philosophy was very much bottom up. It was a lot of people yearning to be free, yearning to create an alternative to the financial system. However, the ideas such as the principle of users' self-sovereignty and the concept of the metaverse was back then non-existent. Nowadays, the biggest development that actually, I believe, shook up the ground, and frankly, it brought me back into the space, was the emergence of the popularity of NFTs. And not because just of the NFT technology, but because of the community it created. So previously in 2017, most blockchain professionals and people interested in the crypto space would be geniuses, but extremely technical people with computer science backgrounds, not many commercial people. For commercial people, actually, the jargon was quite hard to understand. The concepts were very convoluted. But when NFTs started gaining popularity, let's say beginning of 2020, essentially suddenly it brought amazing creatives to the space. It brought us artists, rappers, creative designers. Now it brings us fashion. And suddenly there was a counterbalance for all this technical expertise. And in my eyes, right now we're in the golden days of our community, where investors start to understand the new economic paradigms enabled by blockchain, whereas the community started growing out in all directions, incorporating celebrities, new sectors, and I really believe we're at the golden era of blockchain currently.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We have another question from our viewers. So how do you see the EU market reception compared to the rest of the world from a cultural and regulatory perspective?
That's a great question. So to unpack it, because essentially it's two questions in one. From the cultural perspective, what I noticed is that in Europe, maybe not in the Eastern Europe where I'm from, but certainly in the Western Europe, people are more compliant and trustful towards their governments. This is not a bad thing, but this is just a cultural norm that emerged. So this need for creating an alternative system is not as urgent as it is in some other places, like you would see in Latin America, for example. So this is something that might shape the adoption of blockchain technologies, not into an alternative system, but actually as a bridge between the societal and economic systems that you would encounter in the current European setup. From the regulatory standpoint, a very important thing is essentially focus on users' privacy and the protection of their data, the GDPR compliance, the PSD2 directive, the Open Banking directive. All of this creates opportunities, but also potentially legal risks. So when we're doing blockchain projects in Europe, potentially there is a couple of extra legal consultations that need to be had in order to understand if all of the data meet the requirements of European directives. But I'm very happy that philosophically, they're very much in line with the concept of user centricity, self-sovereignty, and giving the users full control of their data as an asset, which underpins the foundations of what we call the metaverse operating system.
Super. Thank you so much for that. And I think we do have another question that arrived in the meantime.
Lovely.
So you mentioned Speed Invest earlier. Are there any additional funds in Europe that are focused on blockchain and that entrepreneurs should be aware of?
There are multiple currently. I'm personally connected to some great people at Maven 11 as well as CVC, Crypto Valley. However, I encourage you to give it a search. The key questions you should be able to answer when you're looking for those types of investment opportunities is, first of all, someone can be a blockchain-focused investor, but not really be willing to invest into tokens. So that's the first thing you need to consider. Do I want to do a token fundraise, or am I just looking to raise money through an equity instrument and then match those parameters to your search adequately? Another thing is that nowadays, blockchain is a very hot space. So a lot of investors that used to be fintech investors or just startup investors across many verticals, they start venturing out to blockchain and crypto, and they can still add a lot of value. But you have to understand that there are not crypto native investors. There are not focused and fully dedicated to that space, like the examples I mentioned before, and like Outlier Ventures, because for us, it's all about Web3, blockchain, and the metaverse. This is our core focus and the sole focus. Having said that, there is some great experience in the European market and great investors. Always do your research, and a piece of advice that I give to the cohort startups, we all give that piece of advice, even though they're definitely not financial advice. Essentially, money can come from a lot of sources. So the lens you should adapt in picking your investors and picking them wisely is the added value they bring to the table. Through their connections, through the things they can help you out with, introductions they can make, collaborations they can enable, or basically sector expertise they have. It might be blockchain, but it might be the vertical that you're introducing blockchain to, and that's the kind of investor you might need. So always, please put on that value add lens before making any potential commitment with an investor, because that's the best way to reach the optimal result.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing your advice as well.
Not financial advice.
So, yeah, gotcha. So we have another question, and I think this is the last one. How do I vet a VC to see if they really get blockchain? So you kind of covered some parts of this in your previous answer, but maybe there's something more to add.
I would do two things to do like an acid test. I would first collaborate with the most technically smart person on your team and essentially try to sneak in some very blockchain-y terms. Some examples would be the new wave of trends such as play to earn, and essentially make it a discussion point with the investor. Don't present it as a way of questioning them, because it's about building a relationship. So an interrogation is not the best way to build a relationship. But if you make it a discussion point, that discussion should tell you how long they have been in the space and essentially how bullish they are on the space, or is it only a way for them to diversify? Another way would be to ask them about the current projects in the portfolio that are based on blockchain or related to blockchain technology, and ask them about their investment rationale. That will give them an opportunity to tell you more about their investment thesis, and then you will see if the investment thesis is directly linked to blockchain, or is blockchain just a cherry on top their main investment thesis, which might be targeting other sectors.
Super. Thank you so much, Blake, for your time and for joining our session. It was really a pleasure, and I hope to see you again soon at one of our Filecoin community events.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Filecoin Orbit community, for listening to my presentation. I look forward to seeing you soon and helping you take your Filecoin/IPFS startup to the next level.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Take care.
This was our second session of the day, and before we move on to our break, we have our third talk, and that's going to be given by our guest Jimmy Lee from Protocol Labs, and he's gonna introduce you to ways of scaling your Filecoin and IPFS project. Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all ours. Yeah, take the screen. It's yours.
Cool. So I will take over and show my screen. So one moment. Can everyone see my screen? Okay.
We can see it now.
Awesome. So, hey, so I've been working on technology called Estuary, which has been in production for about 5 months, or roughly 6 now. And it has been our tool to make Filecoin storage deals. And so lately, I think a lot of people have been thinking about, well, how do I actually use Filecoin? How do I understand IPFS maybe, I understand pinning, etc. And this talk is going to be about how you can use Estuary today to make Filecoin storage deals in a very short period of time, and how the team behind it, and a live code demo as well. So you'll be able to kind of follow me along the way. And if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'm easy to find. So the team involved with doing this is called the Application Research Group. And it consists of Jeremy Johnson, Brenda, Elijah, Peter, Chris Waring, myself, Jimmy Lee, and a lot of friends in the ecosystem protocol labs. So technology that we use to build Estuary and IPFS is actually made by a ton of people, a ton of contributors from around the world. And so we're really lucky to have such a broad group of people who want to help make IPFS and Filecoin work. And so feel free to check out our code. And so if you go to this website, arg.protocol.ai, you can visit Estuary Tech, and you can kind of see that we have all of our files, our deals on chain, total pin data, and total seal storage available publicly. So we share all our stats in real time as we make progress in storing files on the Filecoin network. And so I'll zoom in a little bit since it might be hard to see. But we have we're approaching 10 million files, 33,000 deals on chain, 84 terabytes of total pin data. So that's kind of like hot storage. You can retrieve that from any IPFS gateway. And then total sealed storage, 281 terabytes. We're approaching 300 terabytes. And that's actually on the Filecoin network. And so what I mean by that is, after you upload data, kind of like this GUI format where you have like this, you can just drag and drop files. You can actually see which storage providers are storing your data, and you can actually get the Filecoin deal receipt and the proposal receipt. So you can see how long that deal is on chain. And you can see our graph here and how much progress we've made, with all these different providers. And every provider that works with us actually doesn't have to worry about us tracking errors and logs, because we plan on restoring the state as we fix bugs. So the relationships have been really great, because what it takes to actually scale Filecoin is working with all the storage providers in the ecosystem and helping them find bugs in our code so that we can all work together to store deals at a better rate. So we just track good performance. We kind of celebrate the wins. And so for each of these providers, you can see all the ones that we work with and their performance. So before I continue, I'll show a different browser screen. Where you can see the application research group, the team here, the people involved, really awesome people like Ollie, Hannah, who works on stuff like GraphSync, and new faces such as Brenda. And we have all of our code that's open source. And so our philosophy towards helping scale Filecoin IPFS is to do everything out in the open. We do not have a proprietary code. We don't hide anything at all from the public. Everything is done in open. So if you click on Estuary here, one really cool thing that you can do is you can go into a file like main.go, and you can see all of our dependencies and everything that composes of a Filecoin Estuary node. If you go into the node folder here and you click on node.go, you can see that we're composed of a lot of the things that people see in the IPFS ecosystem. And so everything that we're using, there are no secrets. Everything that we're using is in open, and you can contribute to any part of it. And we're hoping that this methodology will actually help people use IPFS, use Filecoin, and not think that anything is behind a closed door. And we are always open to PRs and commits. We have a couple pull requests open right now, and if you're interested in contributing, feel free to. In the repo, we also have the entire web client. And so you can actually, instead of going to estuary.tech, which I just can do right here, you can actually just take this repo. It's only 2 steps: npm install, npm run dev, and you can run the entire estuary client in your own local host. So you don't even have to go to the website, and you can tweak it. You can fork it however you like. You can make changes. And so we wanted to build the GUI and the web client, the thing that shovels data to an API server or whatever, completely in separation. So this allows us to kind of separate the parts. And so the actual estuary API node is just pure Go code that can receive data and store data on the Filecoin network. It's as simple as that. If you're ever curious when you're looking at estuary and you're looking at the product, well, gosh, what can I actually do? If you're technically inclined, you can actually go to handlers.go and you can check out all of our down here, all of our API endpoints. So we used the Echo Go web framework, and we have all our API endpoints here. You can see everything, how it works. And if something is not in our documentation, you can come here, you can check it out, and actually see how the code works, how it scales, and do your own benchmarks and performance on it if you're running your own estuary node, and help us develop this and help us grow the code base so that we can support as many people as possible. Lastly, in this part of the tour, we have the estuary docs. So estuary docs is also just like the estuary client, and all of this code is open source and out in the open. And so you can clone the docs. And what we have in our docs that's unique to other documentation platforms is that you can live code within the documentation. So if I want to do this, I can just change the code right here and try different things out. And so what we're going to do right now, actually, is I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to go into my estuary account and grab a API key, and I'm going to demonstrate how you can use the docs to just kind of upload data, list data, and do everything from the documentation itself, and look at this code example. And then afterwards, I'm going to show you how you can take the stuff that you see in the API docs and actually use it in a live code project. And so here I am in estuary, and I'm going to go into the page. And so here are all the files I've uploaded to estuary. And uploading from the GUI is actually pretty simple. So I'll just go do a quick demo here. I'm going to click add a file, and I'm just going to pick a few nature videos. And so I have this one of like a bunny, and I have this one of these green mountains. And so I'm just going to take this, select all these, hit open, and here you have all your queued files up. And so uploading to Filecoin IPFS using our stack and our tools is as simple as clicking upload all and then waiting for progress bars to finish. And so we've turned, I think, the whole process of getting data to Filecoin, for the user at least, for someone who just wants to store data, into a 5-minute problem. And so hopefully this finishes within the next few moments. But I think this is kind of how much progress we've made in the last, maybe a good example of the distance we've covered over the last 6 months, and how easy we want Filecoin to be for everyone. And so there isn't any transactions happening here where you don't actually have to pay your own Filecoin to make these deals, because we have a Filecoin wallet attached to the node where we make the deals on your behalf. And so if you want to provide Filecoin as a service to someone, you can run your own estuary node and do that. So as this is going, I want to show you what I mean by that. So here we have balance. If I go here, if you're an admin running an estuary node, so you have a Filecoin address, you have a Filecoin balance, and you have this notion of verified data cap. And so you might hear about what data cap is. You don't actually have to have verified data cap. You can make Filecoin deals with your balance, and we can move the Filecoin to an estuary escrow, and you can actually use this Filecoin. This is the actual Filecoin that we allowed to be used to make deals. And so estuary allows for that whole picture where you have a Filecoin address, you have some Filecoin, and you want to help your users who are using this tool to make deals with their files. So we can check back here on the other page, upload data. You see a couple files are uploaded, and all of the, people were talking about this on social media the other day. One really important thing to them was like, oh, I have a video file, or I have anything, I want to upload it immediately and I want to view it right away. And so you can see right here, there's a dweb link for it already. And my famous last words, I'm gonna actually try this live. Not even gonna get, and it's probably gonna take a while because it probably just got uploaded, and we'll come back here and check and see where it is. But some of these files are larger than, you know, something small, and hopefully it resolves. You can see the loader in the top right. But yeah, you get a link that you can eventually use to view the file almost immediately. Cool. So I'm going to go into my API keys, and I know it's a little dangerous to do this on a video because people can, you know, take these keys, but I will revoke all these keys, so don't worry. I'm going to generate an API key right here. I'm going to revoke this. I'm going to revoke this. I'm going to revoke this one and leave. Okay, cool. So I am logged out now. I'm going to go to the S3 documentation. So we have a tutorial here that helps people use S3. If you want to get into S3, actually the right thing to do is to click on Get an Invite. And if you fill out this form, I will actually give you an S3 invite, and you can actually use everything that you see here today. You can see right here on the bottom, there's some stuff to talk about here where, you know, S3 is for public data. You should be using it for public usage. But if you wish to use it for private data, make sure you encrypt it first. And these are the kind of like tools that, you know, like we recommend when anyone's using, you know, trying to put tons of data into the Filecoin network to be aware of, because, you know, you're responsible for your data and the network is centralized. So there's less governance around, you know, the way that you put data into the network. So just be careful here. And I'm going to show you here, when we do get API access as per our tutorial, what we can do is that API keys. You can just go right here and you can just copy and paste it, and the API input will work. So if you didn't see below, because I'm zoomed in right now, you know, this doesn't work without auth, but I just copy and paste the API key and you can see everything around my account on S3. And I think this stuff is really important for people to see, because as people make tools to help scale IPFS and Filecoin, it's really important to show in user land what actually, you know, consists of, you know, what are the settings and what are the parameters that people actually use to make Filecoin deals. And so a lot of these things that are involved with such things like deal duration, max staging weight, file staging threshold, these things are going to be alien to your users. So, you know, a big part of scaling up Filecoin is actually having people onboarding data and making some of these things less complicated. And so in our tutorial, you know, you start here with the API key. You can see, okay, I have all of these fields. You have a tutorial for how to get started. We just did some of the parts here. And we can go to uploading your first file. And with the API key here, I have all this example code here. I can just copy and paste this line right here. And I can go and use, it's kind of like a mini app on the screen. I can actually just click choose file, right? And I can just upload another, you know, zip file. And so we think all of this stuff is really important towards scaling IPFS and Filecoin, because for a developer, you want to be able to live code and you want to be able to like experiment with things in a sandbox, and you want to be able to actually like, you know, do things that you can prove that something happened, right? And so you know, it was important for us to have to kind of open source these documentation. This page, you can do whatever you want with it. Open source the client so you can actually see here's the kitchen sink of how the API works, etc. And so I'm actually not going to wait for this to finish. I'll show you the other API endpoint list data right here. And so here's an example of me just taking this little field, changing it, doing replace the API key, and ta-da, I have all the files I've uploaded to S3. So your users, if you want to integrate Filecoin into your apps, you all can use this today. Use get an invite to get an invite, and you know, do anything. So this is the video I uploaded earlier. So sorry, that took about a few seconds and probably has some buffering still, but you know, it's brand new on IPFS gateway, so it won't be immediate, and that's something that we're actively working on. But at least this is honest. I can show you that it happened quickly and the video is there, and it's still buffering. But you know, maybe I'm not using a gateway that you know, maybe this gateway is having a lot of congestion. You can also run your own gateways, which is also challenging, but can provide better performance. And so that just happened from here. So if you remember, I uploaded about, you know, 23 videos of various sizes. I think the total package of that that payload was about 800, maybe 800 megabytes, something like that. So yeah, so okay, onwards to the last bit of this. I'm going to minimize this, and I have this little text editor. I'm going to hide some stuff, but too late for that now. I have a little text editor right here, and I'm just going to actually remember my API key. So const API key equals my API key, a new one. So I'll go back into here. I'll log in. Test it out. I'll go to my API keys. I'll create an API key here. I'll revoke the old one. And I'll go here and I'll use this API key for this example. And what you can do, so we're starting from basically nothing. This says, hello, Europe. It's super small. I'm really sorry about that. It should say hello, world. So let's just change that. I don't want to alienate anyone. And cool. So you're an application developer and you're wondering, well, gosh, like, can I just use Estuary to scale up the storage I'm having? Can I get free storage? The answer is probably yes. So here's my code. I'm using React. Like if you're familiar with React, you can use anything you want. And I have this little hello world field. And cool. So let's go to documentation. So I'll go here to upload data. And this doesn't have any async await, but we can maybe start here and just grab this code here. And we will need to make some changes to it. So you can see me make changes in real time. Cool. So we have file on change. This won't work. Let's just make this an empty function. The arrow function here. State, that's not real. So let's change this to that. Cool. So you can see this. And let's have a look at the browser to make sure that everything is working correctly. I lost myself real quick here. Sorry about that. Cool. So we have an input field now. And we can try this out. Nothing happens. You can see that, okay, cool. I have that there. And we have this example code. And so we're going to send data using the browser. So I'm just going to copy and paste this function into my code. Have this. And so this doesn't work. So we're going to do const uploads and make some adjustments to this function. An arrow function here. E persist, E target files, E form data, data target files. Cool. That should probably just all work. This .set state doesn't exist in context. So we'll do here. We'll go here to set state. And we'll do event.loaded. That seems right. That seems right. There's obviously a small chance for some mistakes here. Do a quick double check. Check the word state. Okay, cool. We'll have the event here. And instead of this, we'll do upload E set state. So we pass it through. And I think if everything is correct here, we will be able to just upload all our files to Estuary, which will go straight to Filecoin. So I will do hit save, double check, refresh, choose file. Let's make sure this works. Do this one. And voila, it worked. I've uploaded data now straight to our Estuary node. And from the Estuary node, it will go to Filecoin. And let me show you what that looks like in the app. So if I go to my deals, this is where the magic happens. I'm going to scroll on to some deals I've made before. You can see that all the data that we've uploaded previously is in progress to becoming on. We have roughly around 114 storage providers we're working with now. There's about 600 that we want to work with, and there's about 4,000 integrators that we want to send deals to entirely. And you can see that here are all the deals for previous files that I've uploaded to the Filecoin network, and they have proposal receipts, which are really awesome. So you can see how long it's on chain for. So from start to end, to how you retrieve the file, to the total piece size, to how much it cost you. And so for a while, it was really hard to actually know all this information. It wasn't easy to see, how long something was going to be on chain for Filecoin. It wasn't clear how to retrieve that information. And what our Estuary nodes, the goal of what we're trying to do with them is actually make it a lot easier to see all that information. So you have proof. You can show people that this data is on the Filecoin network, which I think is really important because the Filecoin network works for storage deals when everything comes together and you get data transfer through. And so our tool allows for, as you saw earlier, 30,000 plus deals to get onto the Filecoin network. And then with the deal receipts and everything, you know it's on chain. And if you have to prove to someone that something is actually on Filecoin, you can come to our front page and we have Web3 comparisons. And you can see this link right here called Verify, tools to verify data is actually on Filecoin. Click the example here. And you can actually see that we have the CID is verified on Estuary. We know the size. We know the retrieval URL if you want to get it through a gateway, which is going to be pretty slow, but you can get 27 gigs through a gateway if you really want to. And then look here. We have this. We have notes that CID is sealed on Filecoin, every single provider, when it happened, and then how to retrieve using Lotus, which is our client for the Filecoin network. So I hope, after watching this, you have a good sense of, how Filecoin kind of scales using some of the tools that we've done that are open source. All of the code here is available to everyone. So if you have, a savvy developer on a team, or if you're a savvy developer, if you're watching this video today, you're probably pretty good at software development, or, you're thinking forward. Check out our stuff and check out our code, and you'll probably have, have some questions, and just know that you can reach out to us. We're available on Slack. I'm available over Twitter DM, and any questions that you may have about how to use Filecoin, feel free to ask. One thing I just remembered is I probably want to show you some of these providers as well. So I'm going to click on this one right here, and you can see that there's the amount of deals that they have. Errors don't matter. Errors are to help us debug. Some errors don't actually cause problems, but what we do is we actually keep this all in the open. So you can kind of see for every single storage provider that works with us in this peer-to-peer distributed, network, we can actually see hey, these are real deals for real data that are coming onto the Filecoin network. You can see the logs if you want more proof. These take a while to load because there's quite a bit of them. But you can see the local ID for what we have on Estuary, the prop CID, the data transfer channels, when it happened. And I think this adds a level of transparency to Filecoin that we haven't really seen in the past. Before, you had to be a network operator that had a Filecoin node operating, and that took a lot of memory and a pretty expensive computer. But now that with these hosted solutions, we can see everything. So you can even see the Lotus version and the price and etc. So hopefully after all of this, I hope that it's been helpful, and I hope that you are more introduced to Filecoin.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, for this amazing session. You also received kudos for live coding by our viewers. So I can safely say it was definitely valuable for them to see the technology in action. We do have a couple of questions that are going to appear on the screen. Do you want me to read it out loud, or you can take it over?
I can see it. From architectural perspective, how do you make sure you don't have a situation that a service doesn't take down the whole system, like Grape Network talking down Solana? And all I can say to this is that you got to read the Filecoin spec. We spent 6 years of research and a lot of I think the reason why things took a really long time to reach maturity in the Filecoin network is because we really did the harder stuff first. And so there is a ton of crypto economics proofs. We had a lot of bad actors early on during our test nets that came and tested our network and really threw a lot against it. We saw all sorts of attacks. And so we have to understand, this is a very, very, even for us, when we fully sync a Lotus node, we're at 11 terabytes, of just chain data that, it takes forever to get there. And this network's getting massive. And so there'll always be vectors for attack, but we've thought about it mathematically forward. So Protocol Labs as a company, or not as a company, but as a group of open source contributors, have thought a lot about these proofs. And I recommend reading the Filecoin spec and digging in, and you'll find a ton of stuff that we've thought of way before, before we deployed any mainnet, right? So, and that it's always evolving. We have security teams constantly testing against us. And so it is true, hypothetically, if you took maybe, thousands of providers, who each have like a massive investment, talking really massive. I don't want to throw out any real numbers here, but it'd be really hard to really bring the network down. It'd be pretty cost intensive. So hopefully that answers your question. And I highly recommend the spec. I can't really articulate the whole spec. It's very long, but it's spec.filecoin.io if you're curious.
Super, super. We have another question to go through.
Compared to your competitors, how do you evaluate the barrier to entry for nodes as well as the users? The demo you saw today, I think most developers who've written maybe 1 or 2 web apps or have seen some code or have gone through maybe a boot camp can use Estuary today to make a Filecoin deal. I think like we have that today. Now, if you want to be a network operator, and when I say network operator, I mean like you want to run your own Vercel, Heroku, Netlify, that is far more challenging. And even for someone like myself who has been doing engineering for a while and design for a while, it's not trivial for me to just go and do that. So what we have are solutions across the whole table. And I think that's kind of, a lot of platform type plays are kind of in that area. And so some are underdeveloped and some are more improved. Like I'm really impressed by Web3 storage and NFT storage. I think they're great solutions for, novice, or not novice, but just like developers who want a good experience. But for those who want to fine tune things, like if you imagine yourself like I'm a C++ dev making games, I need a better physics, that will involve getting into the deeper code. And that's always going to be hard. None of this stuff, this is the bleeding edge. It's not going to be, it's not going to come easy.
Super, super. Thank you so much for answering our viewers' questions. And there were some people who were asking to receive GitHub links that you were going through in this presentation. And just to say that we will share everything that was presented here in the notes after the broadcast is over. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for your time and this amazing session. It was great having you. And for those of you in the audience who want to see more of Jimmy, stay on because he's going to be a part of our final session for today. But before that, we are going to have a short break since we've gone through a lot. And I think it would be good to take a little time to have a short break, and we will see you back here at 6:45 Central European Time or 9:45 Pacific Standard Time, depending on where you're from and where you're following our broadcast from. So see you back soon. Stay tuned. welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but I'm really pumped after hearing this music during our break. So on to our last session for today. As you have seen in our agenda, we will have a panel discussion on the possibilities of Filecoin as a technology these days, where we'll speak with 3 Protocol Labs team members, and HQ, whom you already met on our first session, will moderate this discussion. So I'd like to welcome back HQ and Jimmy, whom you've already met, but also David and Vukashin, who are joining us for this session as well. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and I'm leaving you the screen and have a good discussion.
Okay. Cool. Hi. Hi, everyone. So today, I'm really excited because we have gathered an all-star team here today to discuss and share with you on what is possible on Filecoin today. Jimmy and David, they will talk about some of our key gateways and tooling that are available right now. Harrison here will represent Fleek, a very close collaborator in our ecosystem. And Vukasin will touch upon Filecoin Web3 interoperability. So he will expand the perspective a little bit and share a bit more about if you're in a Web3 ecosystem, how you can use Filecoin. So what we want to say is that this is not all of what is possible in Filecoin today, but it is to give you a sense and give us a bit of time to unpack a little bit of all of this. All right, so to kick it off, I would ask all of you to give a quick intro of yourself and the project that you're leading. Let's stick with like 1 minute each, please. Starting off with Cake, aka Jimmy.
Hey, I'm Jim Lee. I work at Protocol Labs on a team called the Application Research Group. We make a product called Estuary, which is a new next generation IPFS node that supports a Filecoin client. We also make a lot of libraries and modules, and we have an example of using a ledger as a Filecoin wallet, as well as some websites that help people understand how Filecoin works.
Now, David.
Hey everyone, I'm David. I co-lead the program here at Protocol Labs that bring you Web3.storage and NFT.storage. These 2 projects are pretty similar, but cater to slightly different groups. Both of them allow you to get your data onto Filecoin using just a simple set of client libraries, APIs, and services, and doesn't require you to run your own infrastructure at all. And yeah, the main difference between the 2 is the NFT.storage product is catered towards NFT users and helps the client libraries help you format metadata, things like that pretty easily. Web3.storage is more for the general use case. And yeah, really excited to tell you more about that today.
Okay, and maybe Harrison and then Vu. Just 1 minute intro.
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Harrison, founder at Fleek. So Fleek is best known for our hosting platform. So we make it super simple to host static sites on IPFS. And we back up all sites to Filecoin. And we also have a storage product that essentially does something similar, where we are allowing users through API, SDK, CLI to get files onto IPFS and auto back them up to Filecoin.
Hey everyone, my name is Vuk. I'm part of the Collabs team with HQ, and I'm mainly focused on basically allowing other ecosystems to interact with Filecoin and understanding how to leverage those ecosystems. That can be either on the token layer, where we are thinking about like wrapping the tokens and leveraging them on other platforms like Ethereum, or it can also be like on the storage layer, where we are thinking how to actually interact with other ecosystems through actually the storage of the particular data that is generated on those ecosystems on Filecoin, and what to do after that with them.
Okay, cool. Now we will dive into each of these products and services, and so I will just invite David to start it off, and please show how your tool enables really cool stuff to be done on Filecoin today.
Yeah, I will share my screen. Oops. All right, maybe I won't share my screen. I'm getting some permission issues. Let me. All right, cool. So I will just voice things over. So as I mentioned, Web3.storage and NFT.storage are a free set of simple client libraries, APIs, and services to get your data onto IPFS and Filecoin. And when we talk about simple here, it means it's really great for hackathon projects and people first coming to the ecosystem, but it doesn't stop it from being a great solution for more experienced developers in Web3 or in general to build production products on top of. Web2 has brought us all sorts of really simple services that are great for all developers, and we're looking to kind of bring that same sort of ease of use and parity to the Filecoin ecosystem as well. Really, the reason we're building these products is because of the perils of using centralized storage, where without content addressing and just having a single point of failure, it can cause all sorts of issues for you. It can create lock-in for you and your projects, and it kind of underperforms in terms of what the internet is capable of. Even if there's the same set of data sitting really close to you, you can't access it if you're using Web2 technologies. And IPFS and Filecoin go a really long way to solving these, but in the end, they're protocols. They're not designed for your average developer to be able to spin up really quickly a project and go ahead and use. And we've kind of spoiled these developers too in Web 2, where they're used to really simple UXs, and they really should demand that sort of thing. And the purpose here is to make sure that they don't have to run these protocols themselves. Running a Lotus node, it can be a full-time job, and a developer who needs to do that will often be turned away from using these really promising technologies. So really quickly, to give an overview of, I'll start with Web3.storage. Users can store data via the client library, API, or Web UI. Data will get hosted first on our IPFS infrastructure and broadcasted to the IPFS network. So you can access that data through any sort of gateway or IPFS node, and then that data gets batched up and sent over into Filecoin deals. And we use other providers in the ecosystem for this sort of service. Estuary, for instance, with Jim, they're one of the big funnels to getting things onto Filecoin, as well as through Textile's deal-making service. And even though we are the centralized point of entry for data to get onto the Filecoin network, it doesn't stop you from taking advantage of some of the big benefits of Web3 style storage, where because things are still content addressed, everything's still trustless, users can access data and through any sort of place and verify that that's the data that they're looking for. You're not locked into Web3.storage because you can always pick a pinning provider and pin all the data that's already on the network to them and move over to them. So you get all these sorts of benefits and really can build transformative products that use a different paradigm while still using the simplicity of something like Web3.storage. And then NFT.storage is a really similar product from an infrastructure standpoint, but it's catered towards NFT usage. For instance, we were seeing a lot of folks thinking that they were storing NFT data permanently by just putting it on their local IPFS node and not pinning it anywhere, or they would use like an HTTP gateway URL to put in their smart contract. And it's really high stakes when you're minting an NFT, and that's supposed to be permanent forever. Using these technologies, not in the way they're intended. It's not the developer's fault. A lot of this is really complicated, and the goal of NFT.storage is to make things really simple. So the client library will give you the CID of your metadata for you, properly formatted, that sort of thing. So yeah, both have been really taking off since we launched them. NFT.storage about 6 months ago, Web3.storage about 3 months ago now, and we hope it becomes a really integral part of the Filecoin ecosystem. These are free services to use because of some cool features around Filecoin and the economics there, and verified storage and that sort of thing that I can dive into more if folks are interested in. But for now, I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thank you, David. I know like NFT.storage, Web3.storage are like awesome things. Like there are many, many applications in the Filecoin ecosystem and the broader Web3 ecosystem that are using NFT.storage and Web3.storage, and really, really excited to see what the future brings for that. I will switch it over to Jim. Jim, please tell us what is now possible on Filecoin.
Hey everyone, I have slides for you, so I'll give that a shot and see if it works. And it looks like it will, so I'll share my screen and I will begin this keynote. And so hopefully everyone can see this. So hi, I'm Jim. I work on the arg.protocol.ai. You can go visit that website and learn more about the team. And Estuary is our story for our next generation IPFS node with archival storage and retrieval using Filecoin. And as David mentioned earlier, we have great synergy with Web3 storage and NFT storage because we help make sure that deals end up on chain for Filecoin. And so I can't wait to get into that and talk more about how it all comes together and some of the things that we have to look forward to. So, what makes an IPFS node and what makes Estuary, is basically in the modules. And so if you're trying to figure out how to be a network operator, and when I say the word network operator, I mean someone who is, trying to build a Heroku or Netlify or Fleek or anything like that, you're going to deal with a lot of technical complexity. And the reason why we exist as a team is because we want to help give that code out open source, and so people can just run it and try it, and we can all learn together. And so you can go into our open source repos and you can see kind of all of the various modules that we use. There are no secrets to how Estuary works. We actually put that all in the open. So there's many contributors. Big shout out to Stephen Allen and others on the Protocol Labs teams that have made so many cool things that we can use. And so, for the average user, I think we also provide a story where you can just drag and drop files. And I think this is kind of the challenge with Filecoin is that you're going to have people who just want to have an experience where they can just upload files to the Filecoin network and not think about it too much. And you're going to have people who really want to understand how it all works and comes together. So in this little clip, you can see me just uploading some files, and it's no big deal. These will eventually end up on chain and people can retrieve them. And you can see here in some of the finished uploads, there are some links that you can just immediately use to retrieve the file. And what it looks like after you're done is you have all of these storage deals. And then you can have a look and say, wow, okay, I can check which, miner or storage provider it's on. I can see the deal receipt. I can see how long it's on chain. And Estuary as a technology also has code that repairs the deal if it, needs a renewal. And that stuff is all open source. So hopefully the community will get around it and check it out. And so what's the point? The point is that you have valuable data. You want to make your valuable data available to the world and ensure it's archived and retrievable from anywhere. You need a simple tool to upload that data. And you prove that data exists. And that's really what we're doing here with Estuary, and with the support of everyone at Protocol Labs and people who are making awesome products. Like Web3 storage, NFT storage allow for like that user just to come in and do things, and we just want to help with the bones of all that technology and make it easier for everyone to have reliable tools, because it's a new network with a lot of bugs, and we want to make sure that everyone has what they need. And so I think the way that Estuary really helps is that we make uploading and replicating data around the world a 5-minute problem. And of course, it takes a lot longer to actually get your deals on chain to the Filecoin network in that archival state where it's fully sealed and has a last state start epoch. But at least we can get users to a point where they can sign in, they can upload their data, and they can verify that data is on chain. So they can see through a GUI. At least they can put their CID in and see, oh, these are the providers that are storing our data. And that's one of our, our goals. And we want to also have provided a variety of options along the pipeline. So one way to view Estuary as a technology or as a story is that there's a pipeline and there's many ways that you can inject your data. You can, of course, use the GUI in that first screenshot on the bottom left, or you could use upload CID and take an existing pin CID and put it through Estuary and then get that onto Filecoin, or you can add a car, and we add API points for the car as well. So you can just to provide a variety allows people to use Estuary in a variety of ways and makes it easier to get data to Filecoin. So 1,000-foot view. I had too much fun making this, so feel free to laugh and make fun of it. But here is a map of the world. And then here are some Filecoin storage providers with exposed peer IDs. And then here are some Estuary nodes. Here's our vision, kind of like you'll have Estuary nodes around the world to help people get data to Filecoin. And then here are the deals that are being made. And, these red lines represent data transfer and making deals. But you end up, hopefully, this is where we we get to this point where we're much more, as we progress through the months, we'll get somewhere much more mature where, we really have a good allocation of storage providers in the world. I really want to give a shout out to all the storage providers that have helped us. We wouldn't be able to do this without all you folks providing us, logs and constant support around like, how do we make deal making better? And so in the future, look forward to some cool promotion around like the storage providers and what they made possible. And so this is data actually from a couple of weeks ago where we got 17,000 deals successfully on chain and like over 8 million files and 51 terabytes of total pin IPFS data, which is really cool because that means they can retrieve it quickly from a gateway. And then we have 151 total sealed storage in deals. If you look at our numbers today, if you go to estuary.tech, you'll actually see these numbers we've pushed past these already. So a lot of exciting things, and you can look at these graphs. We love charts that go straight up to the right, and so a lot of exciting progress so far, and we're excited about the next 6 months. So real quick, how do developers use Estuary? You have docs.estuary.tech. Highly recommend you check it out. In my previous talk, I showed you how we can do live coding within the docs. I also showed you how you can just plug in your API key and use Estuary from the docs, which represents how we architected everything, where the GUI has nothing to do with the Estuary node. So you can just kind of do things in your client, offline, online, whatever, and make deals on the Filecoin network. And so here are the docs right here. I highlighted the word stats because you can go in there, delete stats, and play around. Here's how you request an invite to try out Estuary if you really want to, store public data. A little bit of a warning: we do not encrypt your data for you, so please use it for public data and know the risks. Here's a glimpse of a tutorial where you can just see how to upload data. We provide curl, JavaScript, React, and a way to list your files. And so hit us up on Twitter, a research group. And if you want to learn more about the ARG, the team that makes Estuary, check out arg.protocol.ai. And thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Isn't that amazing? We only launched Mainnet in 1 year ago, but now users are able to upload and store and replicate their data in a 5-minute way. Isn't that amazing? And 17,000 storage deals done so far by Estuary. That's awesome. Okay, so now let's take a look at Fleek. I'll invite Harrison to share a little bit about Fleek. Sure, Harrison, go ahead. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, for those who aren't familiar with Fleek, Fleek is essentially a platform similar to something like Vercel or Netlify, but specifically focused on Web3 and trying to help people make actual decentralized apps, taking kind of like a progressive path towards decentralization and decentralizing the stack, but also with a big focus on user experience and making it super seamless. So someone who has no experience or familiarity with Web3 or using these different underlying technologies could potentially, be up and running with a site hosted on IPFS and with an ENS domain name linked to it in a matter of minutes. And so that's really what Fleek is at its core. So how it works is you can link a GitHub repo, and then we essentially can put any static site on IPFS. And it happens really seamlessly. Every time you push a commit, a new build will occur that will push essentially a new version of the site to IPFS. And we use IPNS, which then essentially will point to your ENS name, or the IPFS hash itself will point to DNS. So this way you could have a site with a custom domain, or with an ENS domain, and that process only take you 30 seconds. So part of the cool thing about Fleek is now with Filecoin, and since they've launched, every site that is deployed to Fleek is also backed up. Actually, I believe we have multiple layers of backup. I think it's also everything is backed up to NFT.storage. But as well, everything is backed up to the Filecoin network. And so with where we want to go with things is today we currently have to run our own IPFS infrastructure to essentially facilitate what we do. But now that we're seeing, projects in the ecosystem like Crust Network, or I think there's one called Mason Network, we see a path forward where we could replace our own IPFS infrastructure and even using Cloudflare as like a CDN to essentially just rely on networks like Filecoin and some of these other trustless IPFS infrastructure providers to enable users to host sites or store files in a way that doesn't rely on any centralized aspects at all. And as ENS is gaining more momentum and gaining more native browser integrations, there could be, in the not too distant future, a path forward where you could deploy a site on Fleek that really doesn't use any DNS or centralized infrastructure providers, but the experience to deploy it and maintain that site be exactly the same as it is today on Fleek or even on a Web 2 platform. And for your users of your site, that experience be pretty much identical to what it is today. And so I'd say, in addition to just the hosting, as I mentioned, some of our biggest features that customers love are the ENS integration. So basically, in addition to just being able to easily hook up a custom domain to your site, you could also hook it up to an ENS domain. It works with Handshake too, but of the 30,000 or so sites hosted on Fleek, of the ones that are using blockchain domains, ENS is definitely like 99% of the usage. So we've seen a really big uptake from that community in the combination of hosting a site on IPFS and having it pointed to by their ENS domain. And so how it works is we used to use the raw IPFS hash, but with Ethereum gas costs, that was quickly becoming really unfeasible, because every time we would have to update the site on each new deployment, which if people are pushing new deploys or new commits frequently, that could be multiple times a day in some instances. We would have to, because we wanted to keep it a good user experience, we would have to essentially cover that gas cost for the user. And so quickly that became quite expensive. So what we did is we upgraded to use IPNS. And so now you just have one IPNS hash. So every time you push new deployments, the IPNS hash never changes. So all you have to do is set that IPNS hash in ENS for the name you want to set it for once. And then now you can continue to push new deployments, update your site, and never have to worry about gas costs on Ethereum, but still have that ENS domain hooked up to your site. So now if someone's using Brave or Opera or has MetaMask installed and just types in that ENS name, they can resolve to that IPFS site. And that's pretty trustless and decentralized, especially with all the backup and redundancy we're doing to Filecoin and NFT.storage, etc. And in addition to hosting, we also do power just normal file storage to IPFS and Filecoin. So that's a service similar to what NFT.storage and Web3.storage is doing. We're really just, we saw the benefits of what we were doing on the hosting side. One of the big benefits, which I didn't mention, are augmenting IPFS with a CDN. Currently, we use Cloudflare, but that was a big important factor because we knew people were interested in hosting sites on IPFS, but we also knew that people did not want to sacrifice on user experience and load times, which are critical to, sites and apps. So we kind of saw, in Ethereum, how a lot of it works is you kind of cache data using a centralized layer and take most of the requests there. And so that's essentially what we mimicked with IPFS is cache a lot of the data to a CDN like Cloudflare. And so this way, for sites or for files stored on Fleek, we essentially put them on the CDN. So even though it's on IPFS and you get the guarantee of the trustlessness of the IPFS hash and the redundancy to Filecoin, it gets delivered 95% of the time from that CDN layer. So it's super performant and super fast, which gives users the best of both worlds, the decentralization benefits they want, but the speed and performance benefits they expect, but more importantly, their users expect. So that's sort of an overview of Fleek and what we're doing.
Thanks, Harrison. I mean, really, really cool stuff. And maybe just to flesh out like 2 points that will be cool to like think about. I think first of all, back to the broader mission of like making the web content addressable, work peer to peer. I think here with Fleek, you are seeing what this means. If you're like a consumer, a developer that's really trying to work on the new infrastructure of the web, so you can use Fleek to host your own websites in a decentralized way. You can build like decentralized applications using Fleek, for example. And then the second thing is that Fleek is a totally independent, dev team, project, entity that is working extremely closely with the Filecoin ecosystem. And so, this is really like a story that our ecosystem and the progress that we have made in terms of like the functionality and capabilities of Filecoin is an entire community effort. It's not just the Filecoin team or Protocol Labs team, but it's like everybody in the ecosystem. Now, actually pass over to Vuk, take 5 minutes, share a little bit about some of the collaborations and interoperability efforts that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to HQ's point, in general at PL, we are working more on building like the organization that is going to help other organizations make the ecosystem great and in general nourish the ecosystem rather than just creating the focus on the company and just doing everything ourselves. And to that point, like everything that we are doing with collabs, it's also like how do we manage everything in terms of allowing other organizations, startups, or whoever is participating in the ecosystem to actually be successful, and what are the unfair advantages that we can give them in the longer term, and how can we make them great. Now, in terms of collaborations and in general, like if you think about Filecoin and how it interacts with the other ecosystems, there are 3 main things that you need to distinguish. One is basically when you wanna basically source some storage from, let's say something like Ethereum, where you need to use, for example, a textile bridge, and you're basically authenticating with your Web3 web wallet, and you're then storing some data on Filecoin. The second one is thinking about Filecoin as the token, as the value that token holds, and basically thinking about how the wrapped token has value on the other networks and what can you do on the other networks with that token. That does include DeFi, but it's not only limited to DeFi. And finally, the infrastructural side. And the infrastructural side, in my opinion, is probably the most interesting one, but that's very hard and that's very in the early stages. Something that Jimmy did not mention is that Estuary, of course, is open source and everything can be done by only one node. But the point is in the network that Estuary is creating with it. And not only Estuary, but if you think about how those nodes are going to interact, at some point you're going to have like multiple nodes that are basically interacting in the same data center and communicating with very fast interconnects. Basically just sending proofs to other networks what's happening there. And that's why it's such important for us and crucial to work with other ecosystems to make sure that those interconnects with the other nodes are very well defined and that everything works flawlessly when it's being run by a miner, for example. And something that you can imagine there is having some particular data set on Filecoin and wanting to do some computation on top. What you would need to do is, of course, identify that data set on Filecoin, and you can easily do that, but then you need to retrieve it. And if you store that particular data set through Estuary, the retrieval wouldn't be something that you would need to worry too much about because Estuary would be handling that for you. So either it's going to be ready for you cached on Estuary, or Estuary is going to just handle whatever it needs to handle with the actual miner that is holding that data set. And then we are going to have like a separate network that is doing the computing that is actually talking to Estuary retrieving that file from estuary, doing the computing, proving to the network of that ecosystem that the computing was done, and actually being paid for that computing, and then storing the file again on the Filecoin network through estuary again. And this is so, I mean, it's so cool, because what's happening is that you have basically offline data centers that are basically just sending proofs around. And if the data is in that particular data set, nothing needs to move. That will allow us to do like spectacular things as a humanity, because we are able to like spare the so needed interconnects that we have, fiber optics and so on, and just have like basically references to data being shared, and the data being computed on some other network, but without actually getting out of the data center. And this is rare to see, and this is something that we have seen with the miners that we're working closely with. Yeah, it's so cool to be able to witness the change of the paradigm at this point in time.
Thank you, Vuk. All right. So now let's switch it up to like the entire panel. It's already been 1 year since the Filecoin Mainnet launch, and isn't it cool that some of these tools and capabilities are, even less than a year old, so very new, and all of the community is like working tirelessly to bring new functionalities to Filecoin. I would love for maybe David and then Harrison to share, one thing that you are most proud of and most excited about in this whole 1 year journey so far. It can be a product feature that you and your team worked on, a directional or strategic pivot, or any key lessons learned. Maybe start off with Harrison and then David.
Sure. I think the work that Cake and his team are doing with trying to like closely integrate IPFS with Filecoin is probably the most exciting thing, because like IPFS is just this very loved technology. It's not threatening to anyone. It provides like a very like needed service in terms of just like a unique content addressability system at the very core. The other benefits of IPFS are great too, but I think that's the killer use case so far, is just having that unique content hash that can only ever be replicated with that same exact file. But obviously, with what we've seen with NFTs and everything so far, where do you store those files? And the IPFS layer kind of not being decentralized and needing people to run centralized infrastructure has been a pain point. So you've seen other communities sort of take advantage of that and try to, say like, hey, back up your IPFS files or store them here or there. And I just think, what a lot of people in the Filecoin ecosystem were excited about was that Filecoin was going to be this native incentive layer for IPFS. And so I think once that happens, and once it's super seamless and almost seems like they're one and the same, I could see that being a big help to the ecosystem as a whole, in terms of just like setting the standard for, NFT metadata and, where to store it and how to reference it, and not needing to do it twice kind of separately right now, which is kind of the paradigm of using Filecoin with IPFS. So I think that's like something really exciting that, that would be my pick.
Cool. David?
Yeah, I can jump in. And as Harrison was alluding to, there are, IPFS, really cool technology. It doesn't guarantee that, permanence or persistence. I would say be very wary of very easy to use protocols that claim that they're, fully decentralized, but can provide a great experience. One thing about Filecoin and its development is it really had the future in mind, designing an interoperable protocol with the right primitives. And, it wasn't intended for folks to be able to or to have to make deals to get things on top of onto Filecoin, for instance, or like have it stored there permanently. But intermediary services, like a lot of the ones we're talking about today, DAOs for data and that sort of thing, those are all things that I think HQ's going to ask what we're excited for on the horizon in a second. So I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but they're all things to get really excited about. And what I'm really happy to help contribute to is, this intermediate time period where all this stuff is getting fleshed out. Things like Filecoin retrievals are on the horizon, and pretty soon we can cut out the whole centralization layer completely. But in the meantime, how do we start to create services that can shift the paradigm of how developers think, how they interact with their data, what they consider table stakes and what they consider possible, into a more distributed, peer-to-peer world? Architectures will look very different in 10, 20 years. And you can start taking advantage of this whole paradigm by using the services that the folks here and folks in the ecosystem are bringing today, while they're poised to give you cool upgrades to their services, kind of behind the scenes, won't change the developer experience, to help continuously improve them. In terms of looking back on the last 6 months and what I'm really excited about, the things we've done, we've really had to kind of pressure test what's been available technologies to the ecosystem today, and how we can improve them to help bridge that gap better. And we're exploring like scalable solutions and things like that, to make that happen. And it's all very exciting. It's problems coming from users using the technology, so it's all good problems to have. And yeah, continuing on that path is really exciting for us.
Thanks, David. Okay, maybe we go to one of the last few questions as we are coming up to time. Jimmy, you talked a lot about the progress that's made on Estuary and on Filecoin. Vuk, we are just starting the work on collaborations, and there is a lot of exciting things that we're working on. So can I get the both of you to give us a little preview on like what is next up ahead? So what can users of Filecoin and tools like Estuary and Bridges expect next on the roadmap? Kind of like a 3 to 6 months kind of thing. So really near term, but a slight preview on the future. Maybe Jim first and then Vuk.
Yeah, so for Estuary, our goal is pretty simple. We just want to make sure, as Harrison mentioned earlier, like we want that tight IPFS and Filecoin integration, and we measure that through metrics. So we basically just want to increase the amount of find the ceiling of what an Estuary node can do. So we want to get to petabytes a week. That'd be really cool. And so trying to see if we can make technology that we can open source and get everyone using. And I don't know if that's in 3 to 6 months. We're already hitting some challenges, but every challenge that we meet, the rest of other teams get to see where their breaks, and we all get to learn together and solve problems together. The other thing I didn't mention is that we are working on a Web3 kind of like framework toolkit to basically deploy sites to Fleek. So we have Origin 0.3 that released a couple of months ago, and that will actually grow into something where on Fleek there'll be an Origin ceramic example, Origin textile example, Origin estuary example. And so we want to actually increase the amount of sites deployed to IPFS, and I think we'll the whole end-to-end story hypothetically around like, okay, now you have all this great content from a certain type of developer, and then they can understand how this infrastructure helps them build better applications, and applications are more resilient in the new world.
Yeah, on the collab side, yeah, in general, like there are so many things that are happening on the DeFi ecosystem. So, for example, Ethereum, Polygon, and many other EVM-based blockchains, both on focus on the token side and the value of the token, and having opportunities where you can use your wrapped assets. But also there might be like things that actually allows you to basically use your Filecoin tokens to incentivize particular actions on the network and so on. Well, yeah, also thinking about ecosystems like on the infrastructural layer, I think that we got started there just now, and the work that Jimmy and his team made is actually what allows us to get started with it.
Okay. So that takes us to the close of our panel. And just to end off, I want to end on something hopeful. So can I ask each of you, like what are you most hopeful for, whether it's related to Filecoin, your project, or the broader industry or ecosystem? So basically, if you can hope for the audience, anything that you want them to invest their time or capital on, what would it be? Let's start with David, and then go around the room.
Yeah, my big hope is for people out there to build a lot of things, build pressure test things, build things for end users, experiment with what's possible, and help create a feedback loop in the community to help us focus on what the most important problems to solve are.
Vuk?
Yeah, I would say like raising the abstraction and basically allowing more people to do great things without having to worry about all the details that we had to worry about.
Harrison and then Jim?
I'm a big fan of these like native protocol integrations, like the Near protocol one. So I think like doing that is super impactful. So I would love to see that continue.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of pretty aligned with David. I just want more people to build stuff, and I want people to take our code and kind of just do whatever they want with it and ask a ton of questions and keep us in the know of what problems they're facing. So I'm hoping with all the open source code that we've done, more people take it and put it into their infrastructure or fork it or rename it or whatever they want to do. And they know it's theirs and there's no strings attached.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Nevenka, do we have time to take a couple of questions?
Yes, we actually do have 2 questions from the audience, so we have another 2 or 3 minutes to answer them. Okay, this one's for Jimmy.
Yeah, so Jim, it says that we've been working on this for 6 years. Where do you see Filecoin 6 years from now? I actually have been working on this for 6 years, but there have been a lot of really smart people who've been working on this for 6 years. And I think when we hit our vision, you can imagine this, at least from a scale perspective, we'll have like thousands of storage providers providing data around the world and keeping data verifiable. And then you'll have post-processing for data that I think is really cool. So if you imagine, I take like satellite imagery and I put it onto the Filecoin network. It's not just to retrieve the same images. We have all this extra computed data centers that we should be able to use to be able to circle cornfields and do all sorts of really cool things. And so we're right now, at this point, we're just at the beginning. And you can imagine all that post-processing that can happen when you have so much compute there. And then you can actually, like as Vuk was saying, like you don't have to do it over and over again. If it's the same request, you can actually break down the load a little bit and distribute it really well. So we're at the beginning of the distributed computing revolution. And I think there's going to be a lot more innovation. And so super excited in the next 6 years. And it's really hard for me to say this is how it's going to be because it really depends on builders and what we build.
Perfect, thanks. And we have another question. So is there a Filecoin community group in Ukraine? I'm guessing our ecosystem people might take over for this one.
I'm sure there is, but I don't know the exact name.
Yeah, if there isn't one, this is a good chance to start one, definitely. And I would encourage you to do so. Perfect. So I believe this is all for our panel today. HQ, do you have anything else that you would like to cover in the remaining time?
No, I think we're all good. We actually want to really thank the European community and also Started for organizing this amazing community event. It's just always great to like come out and like talk to the community. I know that it's virtual right now, but these are the things that really excite us to like touch you guys and talk about the things that we're so passionate about. Hopefully we can, inspire new thinking, new excitement, and really activate you guys to, keep building and carry on and love Filecoin. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. This was definitely inspiring for me, and I'm sure it was very inspiring to our community. And thank you all for taking your time to participate in today's event. Bye. And thank you to you, our audience, for sticking with us with quite a packed program today. And just to remind you, we have another day of program tomorrow as well, and we will be starting a bit earlier than today, since right after our event, there will be main Filecoin Orbit conference for this year, and I would like to invite you to join it as well, as our conference tomorrow will serve as sort of a warm-up for what's to come at the main event. We'll hear from more ecosystem leaders, from product people and researchers who are working on building new frontiers in Filecoin and IPFS and decentralized storage ecosystem. So I would really love to invite you to join us as well. We will have a really good program, and we'd love for you to join us and be active as today in the comment section and ask a lot of questions. I hope the program was interesting, and thanks for sticking out until the end. Have a nice rest of the day, and check out other Filecoin Orbit community events that are happening around the world. Thank you and goodbye.